All right, so get ready, because today we're going to dive into something really fascinating. We're going to be taking a look at the life of Vincent L. Johnson.
Okay.
Now, he's a 78-year-old Chicagoan, and get this, not only is he an avid cyclist,
Wow.
but he's also a published poet.
Really?
Yeah, so I know what you're thinking.
What kind of poetry does a senior cyclist write?
Yeah, right, that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, luckily, we've got some great sources to help us figure that out.
Okay, great.
So we've got excerpts from the bepublished.org website, and that's actually where he published his work.
Okay.
We also have a summary of a YouTube video all about him,
Uh-huh.
and even a full poem straight from one of his books.
Wow, that's fantastic.
I know, right? So,
It's not every day you find someone who combines those passions.
Right.
Especially at that age.
exactly.
I'm really curious to see how those worlds, cycling and poetry, might actually intersect in his work.
Me too. Like, how do those experiences influence each other?
Yeah.
So let's start with a little background. Okay, our sources tell us that Vincent has 3 books of poetry already,
Wow.
all part of his What series.
Is what series?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Pretty cool, right?
It is.
So his latest book is What Favorites.
Okay.
And that's the one we're going to be focusing on today.
Gotcha.
Now, the YouTube video about him on the Be Published channel calls his poems lyrical masterpieces.
Lyrical masterpieces.
That encourage readers to stay the course and find wisdom in life's journey.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay, so miracle masterpieces.
those are some big words.
They are.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Pedals, poetry, and passion. An unbeatable combo. At 78 years young, our amazing senior cyclist Vincent Johnson of Chicago has just released his 3rd book of poetry. Yes, you heard that right, 3rd. It is the newest book in the What series, and it is filled with nothing but new and old fan favorites. When he's not conquering hills and trails or avoiding telemarketing calls, he's usually sharing his lyrical masterpieces with everyone he meets to encourage them to stay the course, despite the twists and turns the roads of life takes. This new collection dives deeper into the beauty of the journey of life, the thrill of the favorite ride, and the wisdom that comes with favorite lessons of the ages. What Favorites at the final in the What trio is a testament to the idea that it's never too late to chase your dreams and live your passions, whether it's cycling, writing, socializing, or all 3. So if you're a cyclist looking for some poetic inspiration, or just someone who loves to see dreams realized while possibly gaining a brand new eye-opening perspective, grab a copy of Vincent Johnson's What Trio poetry books today. Let his incredible story remind us all that age is just a number, and our dreams are only a pedal stroke away, so put that work in to manifest them. Keep riding, stay passionate, never stop dreaming, and keep turning those pages in this book of life we all write every day we live. Published with assistance from Be Published, you can go to turtlelip.com now to order your copies of all 3 What books by Vincent Johnson right now. Because the road ahead is full of endless possibilities and poetic moments waiting to be discovered. What are you still waiting for? Get the What Favorites and the other What books by Vincent Johnson from turtlelip.com today.
But before we get carried away with the hype,
Right.
let's look at the actual poetry.
Okay, let's do it.
So we've got one of his poems from What Favorites, called Looking at Life.
Okay.
What do you say? Shall I read it, Vincent?
Absolutely, let's hear it.
Okay, here goes.
Okay.
Keep in mind, this is coming from the perspective of a 78-year-old man
Right.
who's still out there cycling and writing poetry.
Yeah, okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
All right.
Looking at life. We all have faults and questionable thoughts, gloomy like days in peculiar ways. Times we shine or act like fools, but rules are rules, whether it's the rule of thumb or something plain dumb. We all strive to survive. That's what has meant each scene and event. To work, take, or steal, or to do what we will, for life, in general, is almost criminal. We go in and out of power like the passing of an hour, finding ourselves pressed to a wall, a totem pole about to fall. For we are victims of many sorts, and we are tried by many courts, for life is nothing but a trial with different characters and different styles. So no matter what our age, just like actors on a stage, we all play a role young today, tomorrow old. So up or down, everything comes and goes around, another face, another place. But in the end, the same old case. Always needing, always wanting people for real, or people fronting. First we are here and then we are there. The question is always why and where, and what are we searching for? Can we ever be sure? For life, oh life is full of strife, a struggle till the end. Succeed or fail, so goes the tale, and those that we befriend.
Wow.
So,
There's a lot to unpack there.
right.
I wouldn't necessarily call it a masterpiece,
Okay.
but there's a raw honesty in his words,
Uh-huh.
a sense of someone really grappling with life's complexities.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah. It's not super flowery.
Right, it's not flowery or overly polished,
Yeah.
but it definitely gets you thinking.
Yeah. It's
You know that
a-
line, life in general is almost criminal.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
It's a powerful statement, isn't it?
It is.
You have to wonder if that reflects his personal experience,
Mm-hmm.
like with hardship,
Uh-huh.
or maybe a broader disillusionment with the state of the world.
Yeah, it's like you're saying life can feel rigged,
Yeah,
or at least absurdly difficult sometimes,
right.
and that feeling of being pressed to a wall, a totem pole about to fall.
Yeah.
That's a vivid image, right?
Yeah, yes.
You can almost feel that sense of pressure
Yeah,
and precariousness.
right.
It's like he's really in a tough spot.
Totally. And, it makes me think about the physical challenges of cycling,
Yeah.
especially at his age.
Mm-hmm.
Pushing yourself uphill,
Right.
navigating traffic, even the fear of falling.
Uh-huh.
Maybe he's drawing a parallel there
Okay.
between those experiences and the broader struggles of life.
That's an interesting connection.
Yeah,
And he keeps returning to this idea of life as a trial,
right.
an ongoing test with different characters and different styles.
I noticed that too.
Yeah, it's almost like he sees each day
As like a new stage.
as a new stage of this grand performance we're all part of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he doesn't shy away from the darker aspects of that performance either.
No, he doesn't.
The strife and the constant questioning.
Yeah,
But amidst all that, there's also this sense of shared humanity.
I noticed that too.
Like we all strive to survive. We all have faults and questionable thoughts.
Yeah.
It's oddly comforting, isn't it?
It is in a way, yeah, it acknowledges that we're all in this together,
Yeah,
facing similar challenges,
right.
grappling with the same existential questions.
Totally.
Okay, so we've touched on this idea of Vincent's poetry reflecting his life experiences.
Yeah.
But what about the other way around?
Mm.
How might cycling inform his creative process?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Could it be a source of inspiration for him?
It could be.
Yeah. So,
That's a great question, and one we'll definitely explore further. But
Okay.
first, I think we need to take a closer look at the specific themes and imagery in looking at life,
okay.
particularly those that might connect to his experiences as a senior citizen.
Okay.
There's a lot more to uncover there.
You're right. There's definitely more to this poem than meets the eye.
Absolutely.
So let's dig a little deeper
Let's do it.
and see what other insights we can unearth.
I'm ready.
All right, let's go. Okay, so we're diving deeper into Vincent's poem, Looking at Life.
Okay.
It's raw, it's honest, and it really makes you think,
It does, yeah. There's a real sense of him grappling with life's ups and downs,
Right,
especially from the perspective of someone who's lived a long life
right.
and probably faced his fair share of challenges.
Exactly. And remember, we're trying to understand how his experiences as a senior cyclist might inform his poetry.
Right.
So are there any specific lines or images that stand out to you? Maybe
Mhm.
something that hints at those experiences?
Well, there's that line we touched on earlier, we go in and out of power like the passing of an hour.
Yeah.
It's such a simple line,
Uh-huh.
but it's packed with potential meaning.
I see where you're going with this.
Yeah,
Could that be a metaphor for the physical exertion of cycling?
exactly.
Those moments when you're pushing hard uphill
Uh-huh.
and then coasting effortlessly down the other side.
Yeah, and even beyond the physical aspect, there's a connection to the broader cycles of life.
Right.
The ebb and flow of energy, the ups
Mhm.
and downs we all experience as we age.
That's a really insightful observation.
Thanks.
It makes me think about how those cycles might play out differently for someone in their late 70s.
Right.
Do you think there's a sense of urgency
Mm.
or a heightened awareness of time passing in the poem?
There very well could be. Remember how he talks about being pressed to a wall, a totem pole about to fall.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a vivid image of vulnerability,
Uh-huh.
which might resonate differently for someone who's more aware of their own mortality.
That's a really good point.
Yeah,
And it connects back to that idea of life as a trial,
right.
an ongoing test with constantly shifting stakes.
Yeah.
What do you think he means by that, this notion of life as a trial?
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
You could interpret it in a few different ways.
Okay.
Maybe it's about the challenges we all face.
Right.
The obstacles, the setbacks,
Uh-huh.
the moments when we feel like we're being tested.
Or maybe it's about the choices we make along the way
Right.
and how those choices shape who we become.
Yeah.
It's like we're constantly being judged,
Yeah.
not necessarily by some higher power,
Right.
but by life itself.
Exactly. And the imagery he uses reinforces that feeling of being judged.
Okay.
Remember, he talks about being tried by many courts.
Oh, yeah.
It's a metaphor for the societal pressures and expectations that we all have to navigate,
Right.
especially as we age.
And speaking of societal expectations,
Yeah.
we haven't really talked about how Vincent's choice to be both a cyclist and a poet might challenge those expectations.
That's true.
What do you think?
It definitely pushes back against the stereotypes we often associate with aging.
Right.
You know, he's not content to simply slow down or fade into the background. Instead, he's embracing these physically and creatively demanding pursuits.
He's out there riding his bike,
Yeah.
putting his thoughts and feelings into poetry, sharing his work with the world.
Exactly.
It's pretty inspiring, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It reminds us that aging doesn't have to be about decline or limitations.
Right.
It can be a time for continued growth, exploration, and self-expression.
Right, and his choice to self-publish through bepublished.org
Yes.
also speaks to his determination to carve his own path.
Yeah.
He's not waiting for traditional gatekeepers to give him permission to share his voice.
And that's an important point to highlight.
Yeah.
Self-publishing has empowered so many authors
Right.
who might not fit the mold of traditional publishing, allowing them to connect with readers directly.
It's like he's saying, I have something to say,
Yeah.
and I'm going to find a way to say it,
Right.
regardless of my age or any other barriers.
Exactly. And that sense of agency and self-belief
Yeah.
is incredibly powerful,
Right.
especially in a culture that often marginalizes older adults.
Okay, so we've talked about the poem's connection to aging, to cycling, to
Yeah.
this idea of defying expectations.
Right.
But there's one line that still really sticks with me.
Which one?
Life in general is almost criminal.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
It's a provocative statement, isn't it?
It is.
It suggests a certain level of disillusionment,
Yeah.
perhaps even anger
Uh-huh.
toward the way things are.
Yeah, it's like he's saying life can feel unfair,
Right.
rigged even.
Uh-huh.
And it makes me wonder if that feeling is amplified by his experiences as a senior citizen.
Okay.
Do you think there's a sense of feeling marginalized or overlooked in that line?
There very well could be. And it's not just about being a senior citizen. Remember, he also talks about being tried by many courts,
Right.
which suggests a broader sense of being judged or scrutinized by society.
It's like he's saying no matter what you do,
Uh-huh.
there's always someone watching, someone evaluating, someone ready to pass judgment.
Right. And that feeling of being judged can be particularly acute for older adults
Yeah.
who often face ageist attitudes and assumptions.
Right.
They might feel like they're no longer seen as valuable or relevant.
But in a way, Vincent's poetry is a direct rebuttal to those assumptions. So
Exactly.
he's saying, I'm still here and I'm still thinking, I'm still feeling, I have something to say.
Right. And he's using his poetry to challenge those ageist stereotypes and reclaim his voice.
Yeah.
He's reminding us that aging doesn't have to mean becoming invisible or silent.
That's such an important message.
Yeah, it is.
And it makes me think about how his poetry might resonate with other older adults
Yeah.
who are experiencing similar feelings of disillusionment
Mm-hmm.
or marginalization.
It's likely that his work speaks to a shared experience,
Yeah.
a sense of navigating life's complexities and challenges
Mm-hmm.
in a world that doesn't always value or understand the perspectives of older adults.
So we have this fascinating individual,
Yeah.
a senior citizen cyclist, a published poet, and someone who's clearly not afraid to challenge societal norms.
Right.
It's a powerful combination, wouldn't you say?
It is, and it makes you wonder how these different aspects of his identity,
Right.
his age, his love of cycling, his creative spirit, all come together to shape his unique perspective on the world.
And speaking of perspective,
Yeah.
there's one more piece of the puzzle we haven't explored yet.
Okay.
His latest book is titled, What Favorites?
Oh, right.
Now, what do you think those favorites might be?
That's a great question.
What Favorites. It's such an intriguing title, isn't it?
It is.
But it makes you want to kind of peek inside Vincent's mind
Yeah.
and see what treasures he's holding dear.
Given his passion for cycling, I wouldn't be surprised if some of those favorites are tied to specific routes he's ridden.
Oh, totally.
Maybe a hidden gem here in Chicago, or a scenic path along the lakefront.
Oh, I bet you're right. Maybe there's a particular spot he likes to stop at,
Yeah.
a park bench with a view,
Uh-huh.
where he can catch his breath and soak in the scenery.
Maybe that's where some of his poetic inspiration comes from.
Right.
You can almost picture him jotting down lines in a notebook,
Totally.
overlooking the city skyline.
And given the themes of love and connection we saw in his poem,
Yeah,
perhaps some of his favorites are those special people in his life.
that's a good point.
Maybe a grandchild who shares his love of cycling,
Yeah.
or a longtime friend who's always encouraged his riding.
Those relationships are often at the heart of a life well lived.
They really are.
And remember how he talks about those that we befriend helping us through life trials?
Yeah.
Maybe his favorites include those moments of shared laughter,
Uh-huh.
support, and understanding.
It makes me think about the power of community, especially as we get older.
It's so important.
Maybe his cycling group is a source of those meaningful connections.
Oh,
A
yeah.
place where he feels a sense of belonging.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. Sharing a passion with others can create incredibly strong bonds.
Right.
And those shared experiences, those moments of camaraderie and support, could very well be among his favorites.
We've also talked about how his poetry seems to be a way for him to process life's complexities,
Uh-huh.
grapple with those bigger questions.
Yeah.
So maybe some of his favorites are tied to those moments of insight. Yeah, those breakthroughs in understanding that come through the act of writing.
Yes, and perhaps those favorites even include lines from other poets. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Words that have resonated with him over the years and shaped his own creative voice.
Those words that stay with you long after you've read them.
Yeah.
It's like they become part of your inner landscape.
And in a way, Vincent's offering his own words to become part of our inner landscapes.
Right.
He's sharing his perspective on aging, on resilience, on the search for meaning.
And by sharing his favorites, he's inviting us to reflect on our own.
That's a great point.
What are the things we cherish?
Yeah.
The moments that bring us joy, the people who make life worth living.
It's a question worth asking ourselves.
It is.
What fills our own book of favorites?
Right.
And how can we, like Vincent,
Uh-huh.
find ways to express those treasures and share them with the world?
That's a beautiful way to frame it.
Thank you.
It's not just about identifying our favorites,
Right.
but about embracing them, celebrating them, and
Yeah.
allowing them to inspire us and others.
Absolutely. And perhaps that's the ultimate message Vincent's trying to convey.
Okay.
That even in the face of life's challenges,
Right.
there's always beauty to be found, connection to be made, and stories worth sharing.
Well said. So while we may never know the specific favorites that fill Vincent's book,
True.
I think we've gained a deeper appreciation for the man behind the poetry.
I think so too.
He's a senior citizen who's not afraid to push boundaries,
Right.
a cyclist who finds inspiration in the open road,
Uh-huh.
and a poet who's willing to share his heart and his wisdom with the world.
And his story reminds us that it's never too late to pursue our passions,
Right.
challenge our assumptions, and embrace a richness of life in all its complexity.
Beautiful said. And to our listeners, we encourage you to seek out Vincent's work
Yes.
and let his story inspire you to embrace your own favorites and create a life that feels truly fulfilling.
That's great advice.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep creating, and keep diving deep.